Should we wait a couple more minutes or go ahead and get started now?
I would say maybe 2 more minutes. Chris, were you going to introduce the presentation and let parents know about the chat and so forth, or do you want me to do that? I wasn't quite sure what you guys had decided.
Why don't you go ahead and start us off, Don?
Okay. Well, good evening, Serrano families. Thank you for joining us. We wanted to invite you to this presentation to discuss the college application process for your seniors. This is the same presentation that we offered the seniors. It was on a sign-up basis during one of their WIN classes. So if they had signed up, they've already gotten this information, but we want to make sure that we also present it to parents. I believe we have the chat open. So if you have questions, we have a moderator there that would be able to help answer those questions for you as we go through the presentation. My name is Dawn Edgerly, and I'm one of the school counselors. I service students with the last name of S through Z. I'm going to open up the presentation and do the first section of it, and then we're going to switch off through the different counselors who will do different sections of the presentation for you. So I'm going to go ahead and switch slides. Okay, so the first thing that we talked to your students about was making sure that they had the Band app on their phone downloaded so that they can get all the pertinent information throughout their senior year. Everything that they're required to know throughout their senior year is going to be posted to this Band app. So we really, really encourage students to access that Band app and they can download it on their phones. We provided them with a QR code. And so we can, provide that to them again if they haven't already downloaded that app. And then graduating with honors and high honors, we went ahead and discussed the distinction between the two levels. High honors, the students would need to earn a 4.0 or above, and also meet the A through G requirements and or complete a 2-year CTE pathway. They're distinguished at graduation by wearing a gold cap and a gold gown. And then honors is distinguished by wearing a blue robe, but they get a gold sash. And they must have a 3.5 or above. The other criteria doesn't necessarily apply to them is in regards to the UC A through G pathway. And then we are going to go more in depth in this, but just to let you know, we did go over how they're going to be applying to the universities through the californiacolleges.edu. It's a service where they will sign up for their own account. We will help them do that. And then everything that they do in regards to applying to any of the CSUs or UCs will be done through this site. It's an awesome site where they're able to integrate their high school transcript and coursework into the site, so they're not having to manually do that. Plus, it offers them a whole array of other services and supports as well. And then we're going to start off in regards to the different college opportunities that they have with the community colleges, the two-year colleges. We help them understand the difference, the benefits of going to a CSU, UC versus a community college, and what each of them has to offer them. Community colleges obviously are more affordable. They're free to apply to. They can go to the two-year community college and then transfer to a four-year university and still end up with that degree from the four-year university. They offer trade programs and certificate programs at much cheaper prices than the trade schools themselves. I actually just went to a VVC meeting where I was updated on all the different trades that they're offering this year. They keep expanding and expanding in regards to trades and certificate programs. So it's pretty awesome. And so I'll be encouraging the kids to really look into those programs, those who aren't interested in applying to the four-year university straight out of high school. Many of the community colleges are offering aid to cover tuition to first-time students so that they can explore we can help them explore the college website they come in and ask their counselor. We also have a career in college center in our library, and that's a really helpful place for them to go and get additional information. For our local community college, we also have a VVC counselor that comes on our site 3 days a week, and that's also another beneficial resource to our students. The Serrano Bridge program is just that. It helps our seniors bridge over to VVC if that's the pathway that they want to take. So when they bridge over to VVC their senior year, if that's what they choose to do, they actually earn priority registration for the fall of 2024. That's huge because, as we know, freshmen or undergrad going into the community college for the first time, they wouldn't normally get that priority. And so they would be kind of like low man on the totem pole when it comes to selecting their classes. And a lot of times then they don't get the classes that they want because there are other students registering for those classes before them. But for the fall of 2024, coming out of their senior year, they actually get priority registration. So that's a big deal. Students will apply during their second semester of their senior year. They will get all of that information in their econ and gov classes, where they'll actually get to apply to community college right there in their class. We always recommend, even if they are applying to four-year universities or private universities, out-of-state universities, we always recommend that they have at least one community college in mind. Kind of as a backup in case they change their mind, maybe things don't work out the way they had planned it at the end of their senior year, then they at least have that one community college in mind as, like I said, a backup. And then UC applications, I'm going to go ahead and let our next counselor go ahead and take over from there.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Let me turn my volume on. Okay, sorry about that. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. My name is Chris Rosado. I work with students whose last name begins with A through CR. I'm going to talk about the UC, the CSU applications, out of state and private four-year universities. So the slide that you see on your screen right now applies to the UCs. And as Ms. Edgerly just mentioned, we're going to be encouraging students to launch their applications through their californiacolleges.edu account. You'll notice in parentheses there that it says to be sure to use an appropriate personal email address. That is for the UC or any college application that you use. They'll ask your students to fill in a bunch of demographic information, and we ask students to use their personal email addresses when they complete the applications, because they will need access to those emails well after they graduate high school, and their school email accounts will be deactivated after graduation sometime in July. So when they're filling out any college app, we direct students to use their personal email addresses, not school email addresses. They will use their school email address to log into their californiacolleges.edu account. But again, when they fill out the application itself, they'll use a personal email address. UCs use one portal to give students the ability to apply to all 9 of their campuses. They can apply for one, or they can apply for all. Just keep in mind that if your student or family doesn't qualify for the application fee waiver, each application will cost $80. The application fee waiver is based on family size and family income. So when they are entering their demographic information, we ask them to be as accurate as possible, because we don't know the magic formula that UCs and CSUs use to determine eligibility for application fee waivers. However, once they enter that information, the portal will automatically tell them if they are eligible or not. If they are eligible for that application fee waiver, they can apply to up to 4 campuses for free. So some students are eligible for that fee waiver, and then they only want to apply to 1 or 2 campuses. That doesn't make any sense to us, and we strongly encourage them to go ahead and pick 4 campuses because it's free. But again, it's ultimately up to them and the family. So make note of that. If your family does not qualify, $80 for each campus they apply to. We are going to have a UC application workshop kickoff event on Monday, next week, the 25th. And we're going to be helping students launch their application. This application actually opened August 1st. So if your student already started their application, we might encourage them to link their californiacolleges.edu account to their already started application, just to import, because we learned that course history is being importable, if you would, now for the UC applications. So if they're not importing it through their californiacolleges.edu account, they're manually entering it, which might lead to some errors. So if your student hasn't signed up for that workshop, they can do that in the Career Center. We're asking students to sign up for just 1 period, because we are hoping to launch as many applications as possible. We won't be completing applications because this application specifically is very in-depth. So we'll help them get started. Each campus that your student applies to will be emailed with instructions on how to create a student portal, which they should check frequently, because their acceptance or denial and any to-dos will be posted through that student portal. So it's really important for your student to keep track of each portal that they create, each username and password that they will create for each campus that they will apply to. If they do that on a digital format like a Google Doc or an old-fashioned notebook, it's important just to keep all that information in one place so that they can refer back to it if they forget their username or password. UC applications require students to respond to personal insight questions. As juniors, we let them know that they were looking forward to these responses, and hopefully over the summer they got started on them. They have to choose 4 out of 8 different prompts. No one is more important than the other, and they are limited to a maximum of 350 words. So students frequently believe that they have to respond in an essay type response. However, we are told by UC that students want to respond as if they're being interviewed, leaving behind all the kind of fluffy, best of times, worst of times kind of responses. They want these responses to truly reflect who they are as individuals, and they should be responding as if they were being interviewed by an admissions person. So if they are working on those, we encourage them to do that on a Google Doc so they can easily share that doc with an adult, a teacher, a counselor, so that they can review their responses and give feedback. We ask the students to ask someone that they value their opinion and are open to suggestion, because we want to we want all students to give their best foot forward. So getting the most feedback is really important. The GPA is calculated automatically as students enter their coursework, and it's calculating the 10th and 11th grade A through G courses. So they will see that information as they populate those applications. And you'll notice at the bottom there that we ask students not to submit their application without having a counselor or a teacher or an adult review their information for any kind of errors. The deadline for these applications is November 30th. So they do have, I think, a pretty significant amount of time. If they work on it a little bit at a time, it shouldn't be too overwhelming for them. But of course, frequently we get students who wait to the last minute and are really trying to crank it out quickly, and they want some feedback on their responses, and it gets really tough. So we're going to have plenty of workshops after school on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 in the Career Center, where they can come back and get help on these applications. The CSU applications, similarly, we're going to launch through the californiacolleges.edu platform, so that we can import their course history. Just like the UC portal, the CSU application allows students to apply for all 23 CSU campuses. The application fee here is the same as last year, $70 per campus. If your student qualifies for the fee waiver, they can also apply to 4 campuses for free. These applications won't open until October 1st, so over the weekend. It will open on Sunday where they can get started. However, we will have a workshop on the 2nd to help them launch their CSU application. So the first workshop on the 25th is for UCs, and the workshop on the 2nd is for the CSUs. And acceptance or denial will be delivered through those school portals that I mentioned earlier. But the one benefit of applying to CSU is there's no additional writing required for these applications, so they're a little easier to complete. But again, we ask that the student have someone review their responses or their entries, just so that we make sure they're meeting all the A through G requirements. Next slide. Private four-year universities such as USC, Cal Baptist University, University of Redlands, Stanford University, they all use, well, not all, several of these campuses use the Common App portal, where they can enter their demographic information, academic history, all into one website, and then apply to several campuses. So they will again have to create a user or an account, and They may be prompted to submit requests for letters of recommendation. They can indicate that they believe they're eligible for application fee waivers. Their specific counselor information will be asked of them, so they can, get our email addresses from our counseling website if they don't know them specifically. But it's really important that they spell those email addresses accurately, because we will receive email prompts that your student has listed us as their counselor, so that we can enter information or upload transcripts for them. So again, another portal, the commonapp.org portal, your students can use to apply to private four-year universities and colleges. Those deadlines vary from the California Public University system. Some of them have rolling deadlines, some of them extend into the spring. So it's really important that they keep track of those deadlines, because they are very important that they don't miss them. Next slide. Out-of-state schools may use the Common App. Some of them may not. Very popular schools are like Grand Canyon University, Arizona, Northern Arizona University. They are all out of state, and they don't all necessarily use the commonapp.org portal. We will help all students with any school that they're applying to. So again, if they want to come to the workshops after school on Wednesdays and they're applying to schools other than California schools, we will help them do this that virtually. You'll notice there the second bullet point, the WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange link. That is a program of universities on the West Coast that include Alaska and Hawaii that are offering a program where they can reduce their tuition for out-of-state students. So normally when students attend colleges outside of their home state, they have to pay out-of-state tuition. Schools that are participating in this program, the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, you'll see there can qualify for reduced tuition, roughly 150% less than what an out-of-state student might pay. And again, deadlines, you're going to hear that often. Make sure that your students are staying in front of deadlines so that they are not stressed out about meeting them. And they often differ, especially with out-of-state and private schools. So keeping a calendar is a really good idea. I'll hand this off now to our next counselor.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Mrs. Lindsay. I work with students whose last names begin with HE through ME. And so I'm going to be going over some additional information, starting off with the college application choices. So if your student chooses to apply to a private university or an out-of-state school, the application choice may differ. So some colleges offer what is called an early decision date, and that is a binding date. What that means is if your student applies to that school under early decision, that means if they get accepted, they are now committing to go to that school. So it's very, very important that the student is sure that they would like to go to, or that they want to go to that school, because there may be some consequences if they decide later on that they don't want to go. Then there's schools that offer early action. That is a non-binding. What that means is they can apply to multiple schools under that early action. And if that school accepts the student, the student does not have to go to that school. They still can choose to go to another school, but at least they know early on that they've been accepted. So you want to look at those dates. Sometimes those dates come out as early as January. Then you have regular decision. So again, Those schools will have their own set date. The student's application will go through the regular pool with the remaining applicants, and then they'll get a decision when the school releases it, which it could vary. Sometimes it could be March, April. It just really depends on the school. So it's extremely important that the student is looking at that school's website to see what application choices they have and what are the dates. And then the last one, as Mr. Rosado was just speaking on, was the rolling application deadline. So there are some schools that have rolling enrollment, meaning that they can have enrollment dates throughout the year. So it's important to know when you want to start because that would determine when you need to apply. All right, now I'm going over application fee waivers. So Mr. Rosado talked about this a little. Basically for UCs and CSUs, the financial fee waiver, you get to apply up to 4 schools if you get that fee waiver. So again, as counselors, we don't know what that magic formula is. It is questions that are asked of the student at the time that they begin the application for this UC or the CSU. So it's extremely important that they're providing accurate information and they're not guessing. So this is something that they will probably need to work with you parents to make sure that they're inputting the correct household information. If the student gets the fee waiver, they may receive up to 4 schools for the CSU and or 4 for the UC. So again, we always highly encourage students, if they get the fee waiver, apply to all 4 schools. They usually want to pick their dream school, pick maybe 1 or 2 schools that they have a pretty good shot at getting into, and then at least picking 1 to maybe 2 safety schools. So you want to have a mixture of schools and not just pick 4 of your top dream schools, making sure that they're picking schools that is giving them a good shot at getting an admittance. Then there's the common application. So again, that is going to depend on the school. So the school will determine if they have a fee waiver available, what that criteria is, and what questions they ask. So it's, again, always best to check the school's website to see if they offer a fee waiver. It may require them to submit their counselor's information, and it might be the counselor who can approve the request. So again, checking that Common App, looking at the profile section of the application to see if that school is offering a fee waiver. Other universities may offer a fee waiver, but the student may need to reach out to the school directly. So they would want to reach out to that admissions department or that financial aid department to see if they can get a fee waiver, and also checking deadlines. It never hurts to ask. So if a student is unsure if that school is offering any type of fee waiver, then again, they can reach out to the school and inquire. Letters of recommendation. This is a big one, especially if the student is applying to a private college or an out-of-state college. They could require letters of recommendation. The school may specify if that letter of recommendation needs to be from a counselor, their coach, or a teacher. So they want to make sure that they're looking at it to see what type of letter of recommendation they need. If they need a recommendation, try to give at least a 2 to 3 week notice to that person. Also, they want to ask that person if they want to write them a letter of recommendation. You never just want to send an email link saying, can you complete this letter of recommendation? So making sure your student is asking that person if it's okay and if they're willing. Then after that, if the teacher, counselor, coach says yes, they'll complete a letter of recommendation, then giving them at least 2 weeks to complete it. And then also giving them information. So in the counseling office, all the counselors, we have a Google Doc that we can send a student, and it is various questions and things that the student can complete and provide to the person that they're asking to do the letter of recommendation. So it helps that person write a good recommendation and give more details that maybe they don't have or may not be aware of. Also, I always tell students, you don't necessarily have to ask the teacher that you got the A+ in their class. Maybe it's the teacher that you've had their 11th grade year, and now they have them again their senior year, and maybe they struggled, but they've showed growth and they persevered. That might be the teacher that they want to ask for the letter of recommendation. So it doesn't always have to be the one that they earned the high grade. Lastly, making sure that they're spelling the recommender's name and email correctly, especially if it's a letter of recommendation that must be done via a link. Making sure that they're following up with that person. So after they know that they've sent the link, follow up with that recommender just to let them know, hey, I completed you should have gotten the link. Can you make sure you got it? So that way, if something does happen, we have time to get the letter of recommendation done. And then one question we get a lot is, should they take the SAT or ACT? I know a lot has recently changed over the past couple of years, especially with COVID. I will let you guys know that all UCs and all CSUs no longer require the SAT or ACT. So if your student is planning on applying to only UCs and CSUs, then they do not need to take the SAT or ACT. If they have taken the SAT or they would like to take the SAT, and they only are planning on going to a UC or CSU, then what that would do is that would, once they get admitted, they can submit those scores and the school would use it for placement for math or English. If the student is planning on applying to a private college or an out-of-state school, then they want to check that school's requirements. Some private schools and some out-of-state schools are still requiring the SAT or ACT, so they want to check to see if that specific school if they need to take that test. And also for some scholarships, they also require a SAT or ACT. And then lastly, some schools may say that a SAT or ACT is optional and they can go under test optional. So again, just checking it, because if the student has a lower GPA, but they're able to submit a SAT or ACT, they may be factored like a bump or with their admission. But again, that would be for like a private or out of state. But again, UCs and CSUs, no SAT or ACT is required. And then lastly, this is the ACT and SAT registration. If the student decides that they do want to take that exam, then they would need to go to those websites. They would need to register. There is a fee to taking the test. So setting up an account is free, but there is a test fee. The test costs are $60. But again, there are fee waivers. So the counselors have those fee waiver codes. So they want to make sure that they come and meet with their counselor if they need a fee waiver code for that. And I will turn it over to the next counselor. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Carver, and I am the counselor at Serrano High School that covers the last names that begin with CS through HA. And I'm also the Early College Academy counselor. So if you have students in that program, I'd be the one working with them for any college questions that they have. So I'm going to cover two things this evening. The first is going to be student athletes intending or hoping to play competitive sports in college. And the second thing will be financial aid. We are nearing the end at this point, so thanks for hanging in there. We know this is a lot of information. So this first slide right here covers eligibility for athletes. So this would be for students, again, planning on playing competitive sports in college. This wouldn't be if a student just wants to join. Most large colleges have a lot of club teams that are, more like just extracurricular activities. Anybody can join those. This would be for actual competitive sports, especially those that might be attached to potential scholarships. So if you have a student currently playing either for Serrano or for an outside club team, and you think that they are competitive for college, we want to make sure that they register online now in 11th grade. Coaches start looking into that pretty early from the colleges. So we have, oh, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Rosado. I was just going to ask if we can put that link in the text box. To register with the Eligibility Center of the NCAA Clearinghouse, or playnaia.org for the NAIA organization. We upload transcripts for any 11th grader who has an account on the NCAA website at the end of this school year. If you are having coaches scouting your students now, please just have them reach out to us. We're happy to upload one earlier if need be, as long as they have an account on that website. Last we checked, to set up an account on the NCAA website is about $100. That is a legitimate fee. And there are fee waiver requests on there. I haven't done one in a while, so if your students have any questions on that, just have them come in and see their counselor. There are other resources available on the NCAA website, but most of those things that cost extra money beyond the $100 are things that we offer your students for free. So the $100 is something that we can't really get around, but any of the other services on there, please check with us first, because it's something you very likely don't have to pay for beyond that initial application fee for that website. Continuing on with this part, making sure that students still file their college applications on time. We've had it happen a couple times that students have talked to coaches. They know that they're accepted onto the team, and they mistakenly think that that means that they've already been accepted into the college. That's not the case. So they still have to put a college application in and on time by the deadline. We ask students to contact the individual college coaches, not the athletic directors. The athletic directors cover all of those programs, but it's going to be the individual sport coaches that are going to have the most say-so and are going to be the important ones for your students to talk to. Send your stats and videos to those coaches. Again, contact us for more information. We have worksheets available just to make sure that students qualify. NCAA has a couple different divisions, D1 and D2. D1 is the one that usually can gain the most in scholarship money, and we want to make sure that your student has all the classes needed in their schedule, or that they're aware ahead of time if they may not meet those NCAA requirements, and then maybe they can look at NAIA, which tends to be a little bit more flexible in terms of what classes are required by graduation. Lastly, on this, the NCAA is no longer requiring an SAT or ACT score, especially for out-of-state schools. That doesn't mean that the college itself may not require one, but their students no longer need to upload a score to NCAA. They won't even review those. Okay, big part here on how to pay for college. Unfortunately, we told the kids last year and this year, because it's just the truth, that college is just getting more and more expensive. So an education we still feel is incredibly important, especially for those kids that we know want to work in careers that need at least a bachelor's degree, if not even a master's degree. But we want them to save as much money as they can doing that. There are so many amazing colleges out there that don't actually cost that much. So now is definitely the time, if you haven't already, to start researching those schools. We recommend to students, whether they like to use an online spreadsheet or maybe if they like to handwrite, just get a notebook specifically for college, and they can start writing down all the schools that they are thinking of applying to, and writing down what we call the sticker cost. That's the cost that you will see on the college website for tuition. That does not mean that's what the student's going to end up paying, but it's really a good idea to have that number out there now to see if that would be even doable for your family, or if you're going to need to have some scholarships to help with that. And then once they get that financial aid information, you'll be able to tell if that school is going to be a good fit financially or not. So every college should provide a cost calculator on their website, usually found under the financial aid section. In the next slide in just a minute, we'll show you some examples, some current rates for colleges. And that should give you a list of tuition, room and board if your student's not going to be able to commute to that college, which is usually the case for where we live. And also what any extra fees, books, etc. might end up costing. Once you submit, or once your student submits their FAFSA or California Dream Act, depending on which application, they'll only be doing one of those, and apply to their colleges, the financial aid offices at those colleges will create a report, that outlines how much each college will provide for your student in terms of aid. So the timeline is that they'll be applying to colleges first. That's going to be over the next few months. Some colleges accept applications all the way through January and February. Those are usually out-of-state schools. As Mr. Rosado said, the two public California school systems, the UCs and the Cal States, they do have hard deadlines of November 30th. So that's going to be the first thing your students do. The financial aid applications, both of them, are being upgraded this year. They're reducing some of the questions in hopes of making it easier. But because of that, the application, which usually opens in October, so usually around like in 2 weeks, we'd be having a financial aid night. That is pushed out this year because the application will not be ready, they said, until sometime in December. With winter break, we are just planning on moving our normal financial aid workshop and presentation night. That will be in person. And probably sometime in January, maybe early February at the very latest. So keep an ear out for that. We'll definitely be sending out information on that. So that will be, we want students to apply as soon as possible once that's ready. And then they should be accepted to colleges sometime or be told if they're not accepted sometime between February and April. And then those financial aid packages will be coming out soon after that. So that's when you have all that information is when you can start looking at the costs to attend each college that your student's been accepted to and seeing which one is going to be the best fit there. So it's kind of a long timeline to know. Students have until May 1st to decide which school they will actually be attending. So that does give us a little bit extra time in the spring. So again, more details to come along with the financial aid presentation, which we absolutely will be having along with our regular workshop. This next note here, back of gold sheet, FSAID, that's a sheet that we gave to the students that came to the presentation last week. That is one thing that they can get started on a little bit early. The FSAID is just creating the username and password that is matched to a student's social security number. And that's something that you could do right now to save a little bit of time. And not having to do that in January. Start looking for scholarships, we tell the students, but don't depend on them because we never know who's going to get one or not until those financial aid packages come through. We've had students get really great scholarships and have everything covered. And we've had students who are amazing academic and athletic students. And sometimes they don't get any depending on which type of schools that they're looking to. Obviously, the more competitive the school, the less likely for scholarships at that school. So what we want to do is not scare students so much about the cost. We just want them to be very aware of it, and we still encourage students to apply to any school that they have had their heart set on, but just to be prepared and have those backup schools that would be a little bit cheaper that they know they can still get a really good education at. So on our school website, we have a list of scholarships that have been vetted that we know are safe to apply to because there's a lot of scams out there right now, unfortunately. GoingMary.com is a website that we have vetted and used for quite a few years. As with the NCAA website, Going Mary also does offer services for a fee on there. Again, we ask that you talk to us first because most of those services are things that we can provide you and your students for free. But the basic scholarship application on Going Mary is absolutely free. And what's really cool about that is your students will create a basic account and then they will check off quite a few things about themselves, and then Going Mary will match them with scholarships that they should be eligible to apply for. And then they have their one account that all of that information is auto-populated, so it saves them from having to fill out a separate application for each scholarship. Just really convenient. So please take a look at that. Do not pay to apply to any scholarships. If any scholarship is asking, and again, I'm not talking about Going Mary like as a service, providing a service to connect you with scholarships, which we still really think you guys shouldn't be paying for, but any scholarship itself, individual scholarship that asks for a fee to apply is going to be a scam. So please do not be paying for anything except for your college application fees. And then if you do need to create an NCAA account, we will help with everything else absolutely for free. My last slide this evening before I turn it over to Mrs. Gage to wrap things up for us. This is just to give you an idea. I updated this about 2 weeks ago, so these are current costs here. This is for a year of full-time tuition. At all of the California community colleges are about the same rate. So that would be Victor Valley College is the closest to us, as Mrs. Edgerly was talking about with the bridge program. San Bernardino Valley, Chaffey College, all of those are public California community colleges. And for a year of tuition, it's about $1,200. But again, as Mrs. Edgerly had said, they keep having these programs coming through that end up providing free tuition for the students. So it's very likely, we can speak for next year at least, but very likely for both years that your students are there that they may not pay anything in tuition at all, which is amazing. So California State Universities are still relatively affordable, averaging about $5,700 a year. Again, that's for full-time tuition. So if a student can graduate in the usual amount of 4 years, that's a little over $20,000, if not including room and board. But that's pretty reasonable to be able to pay back even on a lower income job. And hopefully they'll get some scholarships or grants as well. University of California is triple that. Unfortunately, they're pretty expensive. The UCs do tend to offer more scholarships, although not for all students. So again, going back to what I said before, is we do want students to apply to every school that they're interested in, if that's within your budget for the application fees, if you do have to pay those. But just to keep in mind that a UC without scholarships can be pretty expensive. The average yearly cost of room and board, that would be dorm and meal plans, and this can vary quite a bit because there are some pretty fancy apartments on campus that'll cost quite a bit extra. But it ranges from about $16,000 to about $20,000, and that's in-state and out-of-state. So that amount does tend to stay pretty static across all schools. But again, if the student is going to be going to a college that's too far away to live at home, that's another $16,000 to $20,000 on top of the tuition every year. So things to keep in mind. We always, as Mrs. Edgerly said, advise students to have a community college as a backup, but a 4-year school that's really great that we've had a lot of students go to is Cal State San Bernardino, because it's still within distance that students can commute, so they can live at home, but still get started at a 4-year college and not have to be paying that room and board at least for the first year or two. So that's a really good option, and I always advise my students to apply to Cal State San Bernardino for that reason. Books can vary. You can rent those now. A lot of professors don't even use books that are, they use books that are free. And transportation, again, that completely depends on if a student brings a car with them or not. So wrapping that up there, I'm passing this over to Mrs. Gage to wrap things up for us this evening.
All right, well, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you stuck through this presentation with us and that you were able to get some wonderful information from us. As Mrs. Carver said, I am Marty Gage. I am a school counselor here at Serrano High School. I service all students with the last names M.I. through R, and I am really excited to join the Serrano family this year. So wrapping up everything that we heard today, what do you and your student need to be doing now? The first bit of advice I would give is to probably start having some pretty good honest conversations with your student and with your parents to see how you are going to pay for college and how you guys are going to make this work. Many of our students are in a position where maybe their parents are going to be paying for their college, which is wonderful for them. Many of our students will also be in the position where they will be responsible for paying their own bill. That is possible too, and it is not a bad route as well. So once again, I think the first step as we're wrapping up tonight is to make sure that you guys are talking together about what you guys can afford and how you are going to make college work for your student. My next tip would probably to make sure that everyone is getting organized. As we start getting into what I would think is one of the most fun times of senior year, it can also be one of the most stressful times of senior year. So getting organized and creating a plan together is a really great first step to do. Just like Mr. Rosado and a couple of the other counselors were mentioning, a great first step is to maybe create a Google Doc or some sort of a platform or a notebook where you are keeping all of this information organized. We have students that are going to apply to maybe just 1 or 2 schools, but we may also have students who apply to 5 or 6 or even more schools. You're going to be creating accounts and passwords and email addresses and all these kinds of things for all of these different colleges and platforms that you're going to be using. So having all of that information in one document is going to be very helpful for you to refer back to, and also so you can remember how to get into all of your different accounts at all of the different colleges. Another tip and trick would be to definitely be thinking about really reviewing some of those tips and tricks that we have been giving you. Really start writing down the deadlines and how you are going to get all of this taken care of. We do have fall break coming up, which would be an excellent time when you're not doing as much homework with your student to make sure that you're creating a deadline for, okay, this is the dates of our college deadlines. This is when we're going to be doing our FAFSA application. This is when we're going to be getting on those housing wait lists and all of those kinds of things that are coming up. Just as our other counselors have been talking about, make sure you're checking out those fee waivers and making sure that you apply for those and see if you qualify. You might be surprised that you qualify for them and you didn't know that you would. As always, make sure that you're applying to several schools, your dream schools, those schools close to you, some community colleges, and also make sure that you're applying to the colleges that have the program that you're interested in. We have lots of great workshops coming up and lots of helps and tools along the way. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let us be a support for you. Let us help you. And most importantly, as it's been stressed a couple of times, please, please, please make sure that you and your student are looking over that application and all of those things that you're filling out at least twice so that you can catch those little errors that maybe you didn't catch the first time going through. Important reminders, make sure that we are keeping our students focused till the end. Oftentimes students first semester in their senior year think, okay, I'm going to do really good on my classes. And then second semester, they think, oh my goodness, I've already applied to all of my schools. It's time for me to start relaxing a little bit and enjoying my senior year. Just remember that those grades are still going to be submitted to your colleges and your admission could be rescinded if you end up failing or scoring less than a C in some of your core classes. So keep your student focused, keep them motivated, and keep them remembering that the race is not over until they cross that stage and get their diploma. As everyone was saying, make sure your student is checking their emails regularly for all of these different colleges that they are applying for. I always suggest maybe creating a new, more of a grown-up type email. Lots of our students have emails that they created when they were 12 or 13 years old, and maybe those web addresses might not be what they would like to be on their college applications. So it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and create a new one that they can be using for all of these things as they enter the adult world. Once again, if you do take the SAT or ACT, a lot of our in-state schools aren't requiring those, but some out-of-state are. So make sure that you're paying attention to those deadlines. Most of those have already passed at this point, but there is another one coming up in October, I believe. So if you get on the College Board website or the ACT website, you could see what deadlines and test dates are still available. Once again, your student will be needing to submit transcripts to their colleges, especially after graduation with those final grades in. You can get to those very easy. Serrano's done a wonderful job by connecting students. We are on the Parchment system, so you can actually just fill out a form on Serrano's website to get those official transcripts mailed to your college, and it works very well. Once again, don't forget all of those financial aid deadlines. Make sure you're putting those on your calendar and make sure you're paying attention so that you don't miss important things that could literally end up costing you a lot of money. Here's just kind of a little picture, just kind of a sample student portal. This happens to be Cal State San Bernardino, of what it will look like when you do get on those college websites. You're always going to be creating a different password, a different account number, and you will be assigned a new email for every account that you register for. So once again, just make sure you're writing all of that down. Lots of students end up taking little screenshots of those, and that's how they like to keep things organized, but it wouldn't hurt to just have those written down somewhere else as well. But just remember which ones that you're going to and how to get into those is going to be very important as you're going back to see if you were accepted, if you weren't accepted, if you have everything in on time, and also to be receiving some of that financial aid information. Once again, we have lots of help dates set up in our calendar to help students and families really to finish these wonderful opportunities that are ahead of them. Please make sure that you mark those down. We are going to send copies of these out to you that you'll be able to once again see those. Our band app will also be reminding you of these workshops that are coming up. So please don't forget to sign up for those. Parents, you can sign up for the band app as well. It's not just your students, so make sure that you're getting all of those announcements as well. Once again, if you are going to come to one of those workshops, down on the bottom of the screen, there's a couple of important things that you need to bring with you. Make sure that you're bringing your transcripts. If you did do SAT or ACT scores, your social security number, your personal insight questions, your income of your family, and any awards and things that you're wanting to put in some of your scholarship applications. I also always suggest those personal insight questions and those scholarship applications that you are writing, those little essays on yourself. Make sure you're including those in your document where you're keeping all of your information, because you would be surprised how many times you can reuse some of those essays that you write about yourself and those little interviews of what you have been accomplishing over the last little while. Once again, most of these applications, at least for our CSU and UC systems, will be due on November 30th. That is right on the tail end of our Thanksgiving break. Please get started early, because counselors may or may not, most likely not, be available over Thanksgiving break. So make sure that you get that stuff done before Thanksgiving break, and then you can enjoy that week with your family. Different dates to remember. Well, tonight you showed up, so thank you very much. And we're also going to have a financial aid night, which is going to be very important, and that will be later on in January or early February. Once again, thank you all for joining us tonight. I know that this can be a very stressful time as you start thinking about how am I going to get all of this done. Please remember that this is also supposed to be a fun and exciting time for you and your student. As long as you're getting organized, you're letting us help you, I promise you it's going to be something that you're always going to remember. We will stick around for a few minutes for question and answer session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Also, please check our website. You can email us anytime or make an appointment to come in and see us, and we'd be happy to lend a hand. Thank you all for participating. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the mic, and if there's questions in the chat feature, we will either type them in or one of us will answer them verbally for you. But once again, thank you so much for supporting your students and supporting us by coming tonight.